Welcome back.
Oh. I'm sitting in your seat. Yeah. I didn't know we have.
What's the difference? Everybody sits. You sit where you sit.
Some have got names.
All right. All right. Are we live? Are we on?
Are we on?
It was really hard to prepare this morning's class, you know. I couldn't take my eyes off the screen. It's a really historic day, very, very special. I think we have to be grateful to Hashem. I think we have to know that the world which usually reflects the lies, it's Alma de Shikra, the world of falsehood. So most often this is a world where falsehood propagates very easily and darkness spreads. When you see a moment of light, you see like the Rebbe told Prime Minister Netanyahu, if you light a candle of truth, it's seen from afar. I was thinking this morning as I was watching him speak that a number of years ago when I met Netanyahu on the porch of the, what's that hotel called? Where we stayed with Harper. Mitzudat David.
What was it?
Mitzudat David Hotel, not the King David Hotel, the David Citadel. So right from the porch over there, you could see the ramparts of the old city, right? So I told the Prime Minister then, he was running then for re-election, that I was there when the Rebbe spoke to him. I remember, I was just a kid, but I remember. And he said to me, he emphasized, yes, the Rebbe said, light a candle of truth, and the light will be seen from afar, the house of darkness. And he really like indicated that had been almost like his mission statement. The Rebbe had given him almost like a shlichus, right? And then he pointed to the ramparts of Yerushalayim. I was standing here, he was like, what, put like this? I said, you see that over there? I said, yeah. He says, this is Shalanu. This is ours. I said, La Netzach, forever. And he said to me, La Netzach. I said, when you'll be elected Prime Minister, don't forget that. Don't make the same mistakes again. And he didn't say he wouldn't, but he didn't. So it's a very, very historic day. It's a very emotional, it's a very moving day. Especially touching to see my good friend Rabbi Zalman Wallach representing the Jewish people, speaking about Yerushalayim. It's very special, very, very special. So here's the thought I want to leave you with before we start. The thought we should not get carried away from the brief victories that we experience and moments of light that we experience in Golus. This is still very much in Golus. So that is to say, that doesn't mean that today is not a joyous day. That doesn't mean today isn't the day we should thank Hashem for. But don't think that evil has dissipated or disappeared. They rear their ugly head. They're rearing their ugly heads in Gaza and the border. And they will continue to rear their ugly heads, whether it's in Ottawa or in capitals across the European Union. I was in the Knesset when Prime Minister Harper spoke. I was there. I heard him say, Canada will be with Israel through fire and water, right? And I cried actually sitting there listening to, I'm a Canadian Jew, listening to my Prime Minister say that. But look how things have changed in this country. Look how things have changed. Canada was not in attendance. Canada boycotted today's ceremonies. And things could change. Things could change. We have bright moments in Golus and things could change. So, Al tivtchu b'nedivim. The psalmist tells us, do not put your trust in noble people, in magistrates, in presidents, in prime ministers. It could be here today, it could change tomorrow. Ultimately, the Netzach Yisrael, the eternity of the Jewish people, is much bigger than the United States of America, certainly than Canada or any other country. And ultimately, this is not the day we're hoping for, not the day we're waiting for. It's a bright moment. It's a very special time, and we all hope that much more incredible things are in the offing and are about to unfold before our very eyes, but let's not forget that until the coming of Mashiach, absolutely nothing is ever safe or secure. And lastly, Yerushalayim, at its origin, it means Yireh Shalom. You know what that means? Yireh means reverence, like Yireh Shamayim. And Shalom means perfect, peace or intact and perfect. So Yerushalayim is supposed to be the place that embodies Yireh Shalom, perfect reverence for Hashem. It's supposed to inspire within us a level of loyalty and love and respect for Hashem that's unparalleled. That's what Yerushalayim is supposed to be. And when we see Yerushalayim recognized, the truth recognized, that's all, it is only the truth. Everybody always understood from the beginning that you cannot reconstitute a homeland for the Jewish people. in their eternal and ancestral geographic location without Yerushalayim. Self-understood. Ben Gurion may not have been the most religious of people, but he understood. He said once when he had this very, very difficult decision, it's documented in a number of places. He had one cache of arms, and the question was where to send it. And Yerushalayim was calling, and the north was calling, and south was calling. And he said, if we lose Jerusalem, we lose everything. If we're not fighting Yerushalayim, what are we fighting for? Jerusalem fell, unfortunately. But he understood. He's a secular man. But he understood that if not Yerushalayim, there's nothing. So that's the emes. That's the emes. You cannot have a land of Tzion without a land of Yerushalayim. You cannot have Eretz Yisrael without recognizing Yerushalayim. There's no such thing. It cannot be. So the fact that the world, which is usually Alma de Shikra, a world of falsehood, that it came to recognize the truth and it came to appreciate the truth is significant. Significant. This is what the Rebbe said to Netanyahu. Light candles of truth and its light will be seen from afar. But ultimately, Yerushalayim is not a secular thing. It's a holy thing. It's a godly thing. And it means Yerushalayim. And it should inspire within our hearts a rededication to Yerushalayim, that we should commit to a greater reverence for Hashem. And reverence and respect and awe for Hashem also means reverence and respect and awe for the mission that Hashem gave us. And for other people who are all created in the image of God. That means really reverence for Hashem. If we respect Hashem, we respect the fact that He is our creator, our common creator. We respect the fact that we're created in His image. We respect and are awe of the fact that He trusted us to make this world the perfect place, His special garden, His dira b'tachtonim. So, l'chaim, Hashem should help us. We should be able to see more good occasions, more moments of truth and moments of light that will banish the darkness invariably, because that's what light does, effortlessly. But we shouldn't be satisfied with this. And we should indeed merit to see Yerushalayim rise, as we say, Tibone v'sikonon, that it should be reestablished. The real Yerushalayim, the Uvenei Yerushalayim Ir HaKodesh, with the building of the third base of Megillat by Mashiach in its rightful place, B'mhedo, will be Amen, Amen, L'chaim, L'chaim.
I remember a few years ago there was an impact guy on a Shabbaton on a Friday night, and he gave a speech, and he was talking about moving the embassy to Yerushalayim. And he said it's not going to happen.
He said it would never happen. They all said it would never happen. Everybody made promises, but you got to give President Trump the credit. He's the first president who makes promises and keeps them. Mm-hmm. He's far from perfect, but then again, a lot of people are far from perfect. You got to give credit where credit's due.
How do you feel about the move to Yerushalayim? You think it's a good idea?
Didn't I just say that I'm delighted? I think it's wonderful. I think it's wonderful. If we are ashamed to talk about the truth, if we are ashamed to celebrate the truth because maybe somebody evil or bad or violent will threaten to do something, we have capitulated to terror. May as well throw everything in them. Apologize for existing, because that's what they want. That you shouldn't exist anymore.
Yeah, I hear you.
Anyway, l'chaim, let us study Torah. So, actually, the idea of being able to study Torah in a moment of great excitement and a great joy is a central theme in today's class, as we're continuing our study of Megillat Ruth, because as you're going to hear what seems on the surface to be just, a very ordinary person having a very ordinary night is not that at all. Ruth is no ordinary woman, and Boaz is no ordinary man, and this fateful night of their meeting is no ordinary frame in time. Everything here is extraordinary. Everything over here represents a sweep of history that is far beyond two individuals, both from the past and, of course, perhaps even more so for the future. So, Ruth this is her hour. This is the 0 hour. Okay, the 0 hour, the hour has arrived now. And Naomi has set the stage. She has paved the path. She has illuminated the direction and the way. But Ruth has to do it. Nobody can do this for Ruth. And it took tremendous bravery. This was not an easy thing to do, especially because Ruth did not fully understand this. It's very clear from the Ger Shmuel and the other Mefarshim that Ruth was still questioning inside, but yet remained a faithful follower. And so Ruth does make her preparations, as Naomi told her to, and she puts everything together in a bag. She wraps herself in a shawl, the Mefarshim say, exhibiting tremendous modesty. I'm just going to give you a brief overview, and then we'll go to actually study the Psukim. And she starts to head out for the fields of Boaz. She falls into step with a number of other women. Some of the women are very talkative, and Ruth kind of fades into the back. She walks alongside a woman who's quiet. She doesn't want to be drawn into conversation. She's a woman with a mission. She knows where she's going. Nobody else does, of course. And she doesn't stand out in any way. She's carrying a satchel, but nobody knows what's inside. And she's basically dressed very, very modestly, very plainly. When she comes, she sees tremendous activity in Boaz's fields, and she approaches the large threshing grounds, and people are coming and going. And Ruth very, very stealthily kind of fades into the background, into the bushes, and she watches. And she watches as everything winds down, as the workers leave, and slowly but surely, the woman that she came with, they've seen their fill, they leave, the workers begin to leave. Boaz comes into her field of vision, she sees Boaz bids everybody farewell, and then Boaz retreats into the threshing grounds. And Ruth very, very stealthily approaches, and she moves into the shadows, and she watches as the last of the people leave, and then as Boaz sits down, we hear about him studying Torah, we hear about him having a meal, thinking that he's alone, and then he goes to sleep, lays down to sleep, and then Ruth makes her move in a very, very stealthful, in a very, very quiet, modest, and secretive way. And this will be, we're going to finish right at the moment of drama. That's where we're going to end today. All right, so let's begin our study actually by looking inside the Megillat Ruth. We have arrived at verse 6. Verse 6 of chapter 3 tells us what Ruth does. We know all the instructions. And Ruth even now made the commitment, but now she did it. Big difference. We talked about keeping promises. Saying you're going to do it and doing it is not one and the same. Vatered hagoyren. Ruth goes down to the granary, the threshing floor. So that's the first thing is we know she goes down, as I described it for you in a little more colorful and poetic detail. Then the Navi says, Vatas, she did kechoil asher, she did as in accordance with all of tzivata chamoisa, the instructions she had received from her mother-in-law. So what's the obvious question? If somebody asks you, what does verse 6 say? What does verse 6 say? In verse 5, she said she would do it. In verse 6, she did it. What did she do? Everything she's supposed to do. What was she supposed to do? She's supposed to go down to the threshing grounds. She's supposed to get all dressed up, and she's supposed to be waiting in the wings, and she's supposed to be ready and supposed to make it. She did all the things she's supposed to do. So there's two questions that come to mind. Number one, the Navi emphasizes Vatered Hagoyran, that she went down to the threshing floor. She went down to the threshing floor. Now, there's other things that Naomi instructed Ruth to do. Let's take a look back into verse 3. Naomi said, V'rachatzt, v'sacht, v'sampsim l'sayich. He said, you'll wash, you'll oil, you'll place your special clothing. And then it says, V'yorad tagoyran. So first it says, 1, wash, 2, oil or makeup, 3, clothes. The Targum inserts right at this point, V'tashavi'i tachshitin, wear jewelry. Doesn't even say it openly in the pasuk, but in Torah Sheba'al Peh, in the Targum it says that. And then, only after all these things, so bathing and making up and putting on jewelry and wearing clothing, special clothing, then it says V'yorad tagoyran. Then it says you go down into the area. What does Pasuk Vav say? Pasuk Vav says Vatered hagoyran. She goes down, which is the fourth, not the first thing. The fourth thing is mentioned, and says Vatas kechel asher tzivata chamoisa. She did everything that her mother-in-law instructed her to do. Two questions. Question number one: wouldn't it not suffice to say Vatas kechel asher tzivata chamoisa? Would that not suffice? We know what has to be done. It's already been spoken of. We know Ruth is prepared to do that. She said, I will do koil asher toimri elai es. Everything you say, I'm going to do. She said, I'm going to do everything you're going to do. Now, all verse 6 had to say was, Vatas. In fact, it didn't even have to say, Kechoil asher tzivata chamoisa. In fact, let's be bold. Who needs verse 6? You just had one word added on to verse 5. It should have said, Vatoimer eleh, koil asher toimri elai es, and then it would be like a comma. Va'as. 3 Hebrew words. Va'as. And she did. Or v'chein asta, so she did. We know that the scripture is very sparing on words. We don't get details. I described all kinds of things that aren't written over here because I'm telling you what the Mefarshim, what our sages tell us. That's the oral tradition that comes along with the book of Ruth. Why would the scripture emphasize only one of 4 instructions, and that is Vatera Dagoyim, and then only afterwards to re-emphasize what says a pasuk before? It's not a chapter ago. It's not 6 verses. It's a pasuk before. It's pasuk hey. Vatoymer Leha. Ruth responded to everything she had been told. We have Naomi opening up a speech. I'm looking for your good. That's verse 1. Verse 2. Listen, you must know such and such and such. She gives her the coordinates, location. Here's what to put into your GPS, and this is what's going to be happening. Okay, no problem. Number 2. Verse 3. Here's exact instructions of what you should do. Exact instructions, no problem. And then when you come to that moment, here's what you should do afterwards, which incidentally, that's no longer covered by verse 6 because that's already after. Then that's already verse 7. And then verse 5 says, Ruth responds, V'toymer eleh, she says to her, Kol asher toymri elai esa. Whatever you say, I'm doing. No, it does not make sense to me. I do not understand this. To me, it sounds a little bit dangerous, fantastical. I can't get it. It doesn't make sense to me. But I trust you. So now we just have to say, V'chein asta. She did it. Instead, we have a verse that, number 1, specifically, explicitly mentions one of the instructions. Number 2, it seems to regurgitate, repeat the thing just all over again. But as the Alshach points out, it doesn't say, Vatas koil asher tzivata. Here now it says, Kichoil, with an extra chaf in the front. And we know that Kichoil is called chaf hadimyan. You know what chaf hadimyan means? Chaf hadimyan means as if. As if. Ki, like something. Not the thing itself, like. So it doesn't say she did koil, she did like the things. That does not seem to indicate full loyalty. It does not say she did exactly, she did along the lines of what Naomi had told her. So what is going on here? So we take a look in Rashi, and Rashi quotes the Gemara in Maseches Shabbos. Let me first share with you the words of the Gemara in Maseches Shabbos, which I found in Daf Kuf Yud Gimel Beis on page 113, side B. The Gemara in Maseches Shabbos spells out something very interesting. The meaning of a word that's found in Proverbs, a verse. And she says, this verse from Proverbs applies to 2 people. Number 1, the heroine of this book, who is Ruth. Number 2, the author of this book, who is the prophet Samuel, Shmuel HaNavi. And the verse is, Ten lachacham v'yechkam od. Give it to a wise person, and they'll be even wiser with it. In other words, that sometimes, if you're engaged with a truly wise person, you can give them the seeds or kernels of wisdom. They will plant, cultivate, nourish, and develop those seeds, and they will become even wiser with it. So this is really what a true teacher is, the kind of teacher who's able to inspire the disciples and the students so that they become even wiser as a result. That it shouldn't just be so that Ruth somehow became wiser. And Shmuel HaNavi became wiser. I'm not going to talk about Shmuel HaNavi this morning, but let's say that the words of the Gemara, of our sages, as they apply to Ruth. Amar Rabbi Elazar said, who is this verse speaking of? Who is the subject of this chacham? Who is this wise person? Who is ten lachacham, give to a wise person, and then v'yechkam, they become even wiser. Who is this?